let me get my exact background. How's that? Well, I got a TV here. I'll go over.
Why does Tom keep muting me?
This is Tim O'Malley, joined with Tim Prister of IrishIllustrated.com, and you are watching a special pregame edition of Irish Illustrated Overtime. And Tim, I think we have covered all the bases on this matchup, but there's one situation where I wanted to start us off with, and I didn't want to tell you this ahead of time because I think it's an interesting thing for our readers. We have talked a lot about Notre Dame's stable of running backs, and they do have quality depth there. But it's become the Audric Estime show, supported by others, and I think Notre Dame really needs to consider, Notre Dame fans need to realize that they could be running into a trio of Ohio State running backs looking to control the line of scrimmage today, like they did as a duo last year in the matchup that Ohio State won 21-10.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you know that Notre Dame will lean heavily on Audric Estime, but Ohio State will not hesitate to lean on any of the three of Henderson, Williams, and Trainum. Those are all experienced running backs. So, yeah, I mean, we've rightfully talked about Notre Dame's five-headed monster, and it has been good against lesser competition, but they're going to lean on Estime more tonight. There's no doubt about that. Whereas Ohio State won't hesitate at all to use any of those three. Henderson's the man. I mean, he's the guy that's going to be the highest draft pick of them all. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Estime carried 20 times against Central Michigan. He certainly will carry that many tonight if need be.
And I don't want to make it a throwaway comment, but Mayan Williams is number 3 right now on Ohio State, and he was the fourth quarter killer for Notre Dame last year. Of course, Henderson, we did not know at the time, was battling injury. He battled it the whole year. That's why his season was not as productive as his freshman year. But it's the line of scrimmage where Notre Dame has to win. You've gone over both sides of this. I don't think we can keep harping on. I bring up the fact that Ohio State won the line of scrimmage last year because I think it's overlooked during the game. Those players are gone. Some of Notre Dame's players are gone. These are new offensive and defensive lines. Where do you see the Irish possibly having an advantage at the line of scrimmage, and where do you see where they must break through and not break even to win this game?
Well, Notre Dame's defensive line has to have a great night against an Ohio State offensive line, as you referred to, Tim. They lost a first-round draft choice, a fourth-rounder, and a sixth-rounder. So I think, in the Ohio State camp, they're not completely comfortable with their offensive line, and so Notre Dame has to win that battle. I know a lot of people have been kind of down on Notre Dame's defensive front, but I don't think that it's been nearly as bad as some have spoken. And you know what, Tim? We've talked about Jim Knowles and a ton of respect for him. There's no doubt about that. And it's his second year at Ohio State. But this is it's also El Golden's second year at Notre Dame. And I think that his defense over the course of last season and then 4 games this year, 17 games, I think his defense has been a little bit underrated. And this is a guy that's been in the NFL that has NFL knowledge and background. And so I think Ohio State goes into this a little bit wary of what El Golden and Notre Dame's defense will throw at him.
Yeah, and I don't want to harp on that because we talked all off season. El Golden was underrated. He finished the season poorly because he faced Caleb Williams, the USC Heisman Trophy winner. That'll make you finish the season poorly. I'm intrigued by the Knowles versus Golden, even though they actually never square off. There's a couple of matchups where they never square off. Hartman versus McCord, Knowles versus Golden, two coordinators in their second year. I think that's a big deal here. And Tim, before we welcome John Brice of FootballScoop.com, Tim, you have been on the under as the bet in this. Not that Notre Dame fans care about the bet right now because winning is all that matters. But I am totally with you, other than the amount of speed on the field, and you totally recognize that, of course, where all the NFL athletes on this field can turn an under and an over very quickly. But this could turn into a battle like last year, where it's not close to the best, but you have to understand playing complementary football and occasionally punting is the call, even in a game with this many skills.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ohio State struggled to score in their first two games, and that had a lot to do, I think, with their offensive line play. So I expect Notre Dame to hold them down, and then you look at Ohio State's defensive line against Notre Dame's offensive line, and that's concerning for me because we know what they have on their offensive line. So if Ohio State, or I'm sorry, on their defensive line, so if Ohio State doesn't allow Notre Dame to do what they want to do in the running game, now you add all this together, and I strongly recommend the under. Now, again, we know how college football games can get out of control.
With no money, though, right, Tim? You don't want people's money being spent.
No, I'm not talking about any of that. I'm not good enough to offer that kind of advice. But I mean, this is just the analysis of these two teams 7 games into the year, 4 for Notre Dame and 3 for Ohio State. I think both offenses are going to find it difficult to score over the course of 4 quarters.
And I want to bring John Brice in here for this one, but simply it's a quick one, but simply because Hey Bob 157 asked the question that matters most in the world that we were asking a little bit on Thursday. So is Hartman healthy or what? John Brice, you have heard on this topic. And I want to preface it by saying we heard from a couple reliable people that maybe Sam Hartman's not healthy, but then we checked with very, 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 very reliable sources that say
Yes, exactly that, gentlemen. And I apologize for being a couple of minutes late. Please forgive me. And yeah, every indication, I've talked to people Thursday night, talked to people again last night, people on campus, and Hartman is healthy. Hartman is full go. There's no concern there. Look, Hartman did a NIL event yesterday at the Embassy Suites that was sold out with 200 people there. If there was anything to the rumors about Hartman's health, then it would have been exploding yesterday as he attended that event. But no, I talked to people on campus. They said 100% healthy, ready to go. I talked to someone who was at Thursday's practice for Notre Dame inside Notre Dame Stadium. They said not only did Hartman look completely healthy, they couldn't recall him missing a single pass over the course of that practice. They said he was really locked in, dialed in, and was throwing the ball extremely well, putting it on the money, and looked completely fine. I don't think there's anything to that.
We might as well stay with the Hartman situation here. And I do want to point out that John Brice lives near campus. So if you live near campus, you would have a lot of trouble getting anywhere nearer to campus because it is packed out there right now. I think Tim and I had the advantage of driving in from afar and having to leave early. But we've talked about this a lot, and Tom Mendoza brought it up on our Irish Illustrated podcast. When's the last time Notre Dame went into a game of this magnitude with what appears to be a definitive advantage at quarterback? Kyle McCord, former 24/7 5-star. We have to preface everything we say with McCord by saying 5-star, but Sam Hartman is a college 5-star, and that does matter at this point. John, Tim, if Notre Dame doesn't win the quarterback position, obviously we feel like that is going to go in Ohio State's favor, but where do you feel that Notre Dame really has this advantage? What can they do to Kyle McCord that Ohio State might not be able to do to Sam Hartman in this situation?
Well, I think the big thing is we've already seen a number of new blitzes this season from Al Golden's defense, and they have a lot of trust in that second level of the Notre Dame defense. They have a lot of trust in the secondary. There's a lot of versatility there. So for me, we've not seen every Al Golden blitz, but we know they're unafraid to blitz, and I really like that. I think you have to try and pressure McCord as early as possible. I think you have to try to force Kyle McCord into really quick decisions and hope that he makes some bad ones.
Yeah, you have to make them uncomfortable, and at this stage and nobody's putting Kyle McCord's ability down. It has everything to do with having started 3 games, and you have to keep him guessing in this game. And going along with what JB said, I think Notre Dame is definitely in a position with that. Again, with Al Golden as a defensive coordinator that has seen a lot, you have to make Kyle McCord not trust his eyes. And really at this stage of his career on this level, he can't fully trust his eyes because he hasn't seen it all live in full stadiums at Notre Dame Stadium in particular. So, I don't think Notre Dame can probably generate a significant pass rush with just their front 4. I think that's kind of been proven up to this point. Now, regardless how much trouble Ohio State has had on their offensive line, this is the best one that Notre Dame has faced as they go into the fifth game. So this is where I think El Golden is very, very key. He's got to give him a bunch of different looks, and he's got a very, very intelligent linebacking core that will know how to help execute what El Golden wants to run.
Tim, John, I was about to switch gears, but Priester, because you brought that up, if Notre Dame does not generate pressure with their front four or five, if you figure Marisley, if I was in, there's going to be five coming a lot, I think, at Kyle McCord. That's pretty much the answer when you don't have Kareem and Aquara and Tillery on your defensive line, is you bring five. It puts pressure on the back end, and over the summer, and more importantly in August training camp, and maybe more importantly in training camp than now, all of us looked at the Notre Dame cornerback crew and thought this is the best group of corners they've had since, and then you go back and you stop at 1993 because that's where everything stops that's good. The cornerbacks have played very well. They have not played anything near Ohio State's array of skill position talent. The safeties have played better than I thought they would have. They have obviously not faced that talent as much as well. Notre Dame's corners, let's say they're still number one, fourth in pass efficiency defense. You're still facing NFL wide receivers, NFL tight ends in Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see and learn so much more about those second and third levels of the Notre Dame defense today. But again, I also think that Notre Dame's offense and its wide receivers are better prepared for Ohio State today because of the fact they've been going against such high-level competition across the line of scrimmage from them every day on the practice field. I like Notre Dame's secondary a little bit better than I like Ohio State's secondary. I know from talking with people in the program and on campus this week, they very much feel the same. They flat out said the Ohio State secondary isn't any different necessarily from what we face every day on the practice field. They very strongly believe in that. I think that Notre Dame's secondary, that versatility that I keep alluding to, the fact that DJ Brown has been so valuable. He's in that new hybrid position where he can be a little bit of a linebacker, a little bit of a safety. I think that's a key element. Cam Hart is playing incredibly well. We know Ben Morrison is as good as any DB in college football right now. So yes, they will be tested. They have to get pressure. One concern for me would be keeping edge discipline up there when they are bringing the five. You don't want to let Travion Henderson leak out and really hurt you on a swing pass or a wheel route because he does have that top end speed that Notre Dame will not have faced yet until this evening.
Well, and I think that's a great point bringing it up, John, about edge discipline, because I think that's one of the areas where Notre Dame is much further ahead than they were last year. You know, Notre Dame is not going to approach, if I could get ahead of myself a little bit here, Notre Dame is not going to approach Caleb Williams here in a few weeks the same way they did last year. And I think that they proved to themselves against NC State and Brennan Armstrong that, hey, man, if you're disciplined and stay in your lanes, this can all work. To get back to the whole cornerback talk and the secondary talk, I think both groups are pretty good. JB, I think I would agree with you that Notre Dame's cornerbacks are probably a little bit better, although I think Burke is underrated amongst Notre Dame fans, and Bosen's a guy that's really come along. But it comes down to this, and whether it's a veteran quarterback like Sam Hartman or an inexperienced one like Kyle McCord, if those guys have time to throw the football, both quarterbacks are going to be successful. Hartman is a proven quarterback, and McCord is good enough that regardless of his experience level now, if he has time to throw with his receivers, they're going to be open. And he's been more accurate with each week. He was not accurate early on against Indiana, but I think that if he has time, even at this stage of his development and experience, he's going to find those receivers. But it's the same way with Sam Hartman too.
For all the old Notre Dame fans out there, and I think you guys are going to laugh at this, these teams played in 95, 96, 05, 15, and 22. It would be really funny to pretend that Notre Dame's corners were as good as Ohio State's in any of those five matchups. And this is, I know they don't match up with each other, but this is actually the only time you can bring that up. And this is the true test for Notre Dame's corners. I want to throw out there that I think a key matchup will be that Ramon Henderson plays his best football today. I think we have a lot of faith in DJ Brown, his experience. Xavier Watts is an up-and-coming player, both the corners. I want to see Henderson have a good game today. I think Ohio State could target Ramon Henderson a little bit, either in the screen game where he has to make the tackle or in the passing game. And then finally, I asked this question to Marcus Freeman, and Pete Sampson brought it up on our podcast when I said it. It was almost along the lines of, can you really rotate this much? against Ohio State. Do you think you will see that, Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray, and going forward 5 safeties deep? Because I feel like he's going to pull back just a little bit. Before we move on to other topics, do you think he will pull the rotation back on the back end? I know he has to rotate up front, but on the back end, I think that rotation shortens a little bit today.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that also it's been very deliberate. Look, Notre Dame started its season almost earlier than anyone. Notre Dame plays 8 consecutive weeks to open the season. I think because of that, they've been very intentional with their rotation, and they have deliberately worked the guys in both for the experience, and I think also because this is a grueling gauntlet of games and consecutive weeks played. So I think that we'll see a slightly tighter rotation today, but I think they've been building for this moment as well by the way that they've gotten those other guys experience, and also by the way that they have intentionally not rested guys, but been very judicious with how they've played them and how they have rotated them. I think it's been really, really smart work by the coaching staff.
I would imagine they pull back on a Christian Gray being a true freshman in his 4th game. Jaden Mickey is part of that rotation.
Sure.
Clarence Lewis is part of that rotation. Lewis has a ton of experience. I would think that if they pull back on anyone, it might be Mickey in a game like this. I know that he's probably, he's quicker and a better athlete than Clarence Lewis, but Clarence Lewis has been around the block many, many times. So I don't think they'll hesitate to put him out there. But yeah, this is one of those games where it's although it is all hands on deck, you want your front line guys. Tim, I think you're asking the question because you do think that they are, and I know that you alluded to it earlier in the week. You have to have your best players out there most of the night, no doubt about it.
I just recall looking at some of the important games last year early on where the rotation seemed stubborn to me. And one of them is Marshall, which just seems just so weird to say right now. The last drive where Marshall goes down before Tyler Buckner gets hurt and Marshall has a touchdown drive, I'm looking out there and I'm seeing backup defensive linemen. I just think to myself, this is not the time to do that. And I feel like that on the back end. I want to see as much. Look, I like Notre Dame's backups. It's great that they have depth, but I just want to see as much Benjamin Morrison, Cam Hart, Xavier Watts, and DJ Brown as I possibly can in this game.
Yeah. Now you have to continue the rotation though with your D line. Maybe
of
not
course, just
early as you
figure out a way later on. You're not rotating out of Howard Cross.
Right.
When you get near the end of the game, of course. Now, before we get to a surprise question, because I just thought of this on the spot, I have the main concern for me would be the right side of the offensive line, not in run blocking, because of you both have pointed out, Rocco Spindler and Blake Fisher have done a very good job blocking for the run this year. But whether you take Pro Football Focus's stats or not, you can take your own stats. We all have different ones in terms of looking at pressures. Most of the pressure is coming in quarterback, going against Sam Hartman, pass protection pressure. Rocco Spindler 1, Blake Fisher 2. Everybody else 3. And Joe Ald, of course, doesn't count. He has not a lot of pressure yet. But technically, it is 6 Rocco Spindler, 3 Blake Fisher, 3 the rest of the team. And I think that is where you're going to see edge pressure coming and Tommy Eichenberg on those timely blitzes that they are going to have to pick up on the right side.
And I think you have to, because of Eichenberg's versatility, because he's so savvy and such a veteran, important guy for them. I also think you have to watch for some stunts where they delay him and maybe bring him straight up the middle because Zeke Correll has improved week by week, but we have seen a couple of moments, a couple of instances where those delayed situations have enabled an opposing defender to come basically clean up the middle. So that is a concern for me today. You're right. I would think that Ohio State believes, whether or not it's the case, we will see. But I would think Ohio State believes it can generate significant pressure on the right flank of Notre Dame's offensive line.
Yeah, I like Eichenberg's game. He's all over the place. He's physical. He has some size. But, I mean, Ohio State's offensive line is probably a little bit more vulnerable to a pass rush and a blitz than Notre Dame's is right now. They don't have Joe Ald. They don't have an experienced center. They had Weipler there for it was a 3-year starter, I believe. So I think it goes both ways. Maris Leofau is really key for Notre Dame on the flip side. I'm not trying to take away the focus on Notre Dame's offensive line because they have to be very, very good. But I think that Ohio State has similar issues. And again, going back to, I don't want to overplay it because Jim Knowles is a great coordinator. But I do think that Al Golden has been a little bit underestimated in this in this matchup, and we'll find out what he has in store for them and exactly how Kyle McCord handles it.
A couple of questions, because one, I feel like I'm guessing, but you guys might have some insight. Adam B asked, can Gabriel Rubio make an impact tonight, or is it more Jason Onye tonight? I think it's more Jason Onye because he earned time the way he's been playing. I would love to see Gabriel Rubio out there. I just don't know when you come back from not a month, but 25 days, I guess, off, 21 days off, 23 days off, Gabriel Rubio's knee with the scope. Any new insight on if Rubio can make an impact? I think 12 snaps is a massive impact for Gabriel Rubio tonight.
Yeah, I think it's about he has a certain physical stature to him. He's a very strong guy. If you get 12 to 15 snaps from Gabriel Rubio tonight, then that's a win for Notre Dame, I believe. And all indications are Notre Dame believes it can get that kind of work from Gabriel Rubio tonight. I think that's significant because you want your guys that are your starters, or a Jason Onye who's earned that time. You want him to know when he's out there, he can absolutely cut it completely loose because he will be spelled from time to time with quality people behind him. And I think that's the case with Gabriel Rubio.
I think he hit the ground running this week. I think on Tuesday he hit the ground running. So it's been a good week for him. If it's more than 12 to 15, I wouldn't be completely shocked. I don't think that you go far beyond that. But I agree. Jason Onye is the guy that, he just keeps coming on strong. He continues to produce. When I asked Al Golden about it, he said, he's earned it. It's not that we're giving him extra snaps. He's absolutely earned it. So it's great to have Rubio back. I think they need him. I think they need those 12 to 15 snaps at the very least. But I think Jason Onye is going to be shot out of a cannon tonight with his opportunity to play against Ohio State.
I'm going to plead ignorance here because I drove in, parked at Innovation Park, went to our office, and came up here. But you guys might have seen it. PTOOT asked the question every Notre Dame fan wants to know, because I believe it was put out on Twitter. Everything I'm hearing is it's not even close to 60-40 Notre Dame. Any insight on that? I haven't heard 60-40. We just heard Vivid Seats say that there was going to be a few too many Ohio State seats, despite what our colleague Pete Sampson put out. I tend to believe what Pete and Notre Dame were saying. I have not seen that on campus this weekend.
Yeah, if I could jump in there, JB, I have not either. To be sure, red shows up really well.
Yes,
so there's a lot of red around here, but like Notre Dame fans, I think first of all, the number of people on Notre Dame's campus this weekend for this game may set a record. There's no way of measuring it that I'm aware of. And so I think my point being that I think that there are a lot of Ohio State fans here who don't have tickets that maybe are looking for tickets. They're not, they're close enough to the Notre Dame campus to come here. I don't know. We're going to find out. I think Notre Dame has done a really nice job of spreading those people out. And while we're talking about this, Notre Dame Stadium, the atmosphere has to make a difference tonight.
Oh, it's going to, and I don't want to interrupt you or John. It will be.
No, I totally believe that to be true, Tim. I don't know that I've felt like that in previous games. Not that Notre Dame's fans and the stadium hasn't been great for Clemson games, et cetera.
Michigan in the season opener 2018 was nuts, but we didn't know it was going to be like that. It was a great crowd that lit up early.
We see stadiums all over the country going absolutely berserk. I think Notre Dame Stadium is at a different fever pitch and level tonight.
I would completely agree with that. Again, it goes back. I posted this on the board this week when I wrote the story about the LED bracelets. Again, this has been an intentional approach by Notre Dame, both to disperse the red, but also to make this an event. They're viewing this certainly as a significant centerpiece moment in this season tonight, but also they're sending a message that Notre Dame Stadium is becoming a must-attend experience again. And I think you're going to see more green certainly tonight than what maybe we've seen in the past for some of these so-called green outs or Irish wear green games. And I also don't think, again, I live right beside campus. I thought I left plenty early enough by leaving at 3:40. I was wrong.
You need to walk, John. Just walk over, man.
I could have walked quicker. I just didn't want to carry my equipment. So, but no, having said that, and being right beside campus and being here for the Georgia game in 2017, I have not seen the same level of red so far this weekend as what we saw 5-6 years ago when Georgia came to town. I thought that was a definitive 60-40, almost 55-45 type crowd for that game. I don't get that sense today. I will say another reason, not excuse, another reason that I was a couple of minutes late is I did get stopped in traffic to allow 2 complete tour buses of Ohio State fans to unload. And so there were several hundred Ohio State fans that literally just got off of 2 tour buses in front of me as I drove through Eddy Street Commons. And so there's going to be some Ohio State fans. I don't get the sense that it compares to what we saw Georgia bring up here in 2017.
Yeah, well, don't give them tickets and put them back on I-90 East before we get to our last topic here. But I want to throw this, guys, at you because I thought of it during this broadcast. My pick to click, I'm not saying something like that. The most important player we haven't talked about quite enough, and we talk about every player. I think Thomas Harper is key tonight. I believe Notre Dame will have to excel in their nickel package. And I know we go back and forth all the time on that takes Jack Kaiser off the field, but I think the way Thomas Harper is trending, he is important tonight against the speed of Ohio State. Do you guys, obviously, don't say Sam Hartman. Is there another player out there? And of course, I assume you agree a little bit on the Thomas Harper track there, but is there another player we're not talking about enough that is crucial to tonight's proceedings?
Well, first of all, I want to echo what you said about Thomas Harper because he will match up with Emeka Egbuka frequently. Maybe some Julian Fleming, and we've talked about him during the week. Cade Stover, absolutely, whichever one of those guys that Thomas Harper is involved with, he's significant because those players that I just mentioned for Ohio State are significant as well. I think Cam Hart has to have a great game. Cam Hart is going to see Marvin Harrison a lot. I think we have to see one of the better games that Cam Hart has played in a Notre Dame uniform.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, for one for me is J.D. Bertrand because he's so central to the defense, and we're all expecting Notre Dame to show a little bit more defensively tonight to try and confuse Kyle McCord. So I think J.D. Bertrand plays a very significant role in that regard. I agree about Thomas Harper. You also wonder how much help maybe Thomas Harper was this week with his knowledge of Jim Knowles' system. And he played under him for multiple years. And so you have to think that he's maybe able to help his Notre Dame colleagues out by having some insight to some of Knowles' tendencies and what they like to do and what maybe to expect in certain scenarios and certain down and distance situations. So I agree completely with Thomas Harper, Cam Hart. I think the secondary as a whole, I think Notre Dame's offensive line to me and Notre Dame's secondary, I think are the 2 seminal keys in this contest.
How about a player on the offensive side, Tim?
Offensively, I still think that a player like Jaden Thomas is the key.
That's
and I don't mean 115 yards. I mean 4 catches for 63 yards and 3 huge first downs that keep the chains moving. Because I really believe Notre Dame and Sam Hartman spread the ball out. Other than Audric Estime. You're not allowed to say Audric Estime. Sam Hartman, Audric Estime, and then I think he spreads the ball out.
No, I agree, Tim, but I think we need to come away from this, as we're naming players in potentially a Notre Dame victory, it has to be Jaden. And Jaden Thomas came through, in a clutch situation early in the fourth quarter, whatever, name the scenario. I agree. He's the guy. He's the leader of the wideout core. And in games like this, you need your leaders to play big. I think he will. I
guess I just have a lot of trust in Jaden Thomas, so I don't want to say that I'm taking him for granted. But I think that either a Chris Tyree or a Tobias Merriweather stretching the field is incredibly important for Notre Dame because all that's going to do is loosen up the running game a little bit more. And so in that regard, I look to one of those 2 guys to put Ohio State on its heels, preferably as soon as possible from a Notre Dame standpoint, so that you can try to loosen up the run a little bit more, because I do think Ohio State believes it can cover Notre Dame's receivers in some one-on-one matchups and that they can bring a little bit of extra around the line of scrimmage to try and stymie the Notre Dame run. I would note, worth paying attention to as we get ready to head into the stadium will be the status of Deion Colsey. He's had a bit of an injury, and so we know that the wide receiver court already down Matt Salerno. I definitely want to get into the stadium, watch warm-ups, and see if Deion Colsey is able to go.
I would, Tim, let me jump in if I could. I would like to throw out the name Mitchell Evans. He's back in the lineup. We know how important he is. We keep talking about the passing game on both sides. In order for Notre Dame to run, their tight ends are going to have to block well. Mitchell Evans is the best of the Notre Dame's tight ends. Holden Stays has made great progress. He's done a great job. But when we hear Jared Parker talk about run fits and how good Mitchell Evans is, you had asked him a couple weeks ago, Tim, about Mitchell Evans, and he just said it's really hard to take him off the field because of what he can do in the run game.
We are done here, but we're going right outside for Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis to be posted on our website. Then we have 3 hours to wait, 4 hours of fun following after that. For Tim O'Malley, Tim Priester of IrishIllustrated.com, John Brice of FootballScoop.com, this has been Irish Illustrated Pregame Overtime.